Okay. Galaxy of intellectuals, Honorable Chairperson of this conference, Dr. C.H. Satyanarayana Garu, Honorable Convener, Dr. G. Ramanamurthy Garu, respected Principal, Dr. R.V. Krishnaya Garu, Honorable Director, Professor N. Venkatrao Garu, members of the organizing committee, Dr. K. Soundararajan Garu, Dr. B. Bhavani Garu, Dr. G.R.K. Murthy Garu, Dr. K. Kirti Kumar Garu, and delegates from prestigious institutions across the country. Good morning, everyone. I deem it great privilege to welcome you all on behalf of Chebroolu Engineering College to this international conference entitled Societal Intelligent Systems. I would like to convey special thanks to our coordinator and the organizing committee for their terrific efforts and diligent work in hosting this conference. Learning gives creativity. Creativity leads to thinking. Thinking gives knowledge. Knowledge makes, said Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. We should always be in the pursuit of knowledge. The world is experiencing multiple transitions. In the backdrop of emerging need for research, we must continue to make efforts with utmost commitment to find pathways to come up with innovative ideas. In this connection, it is extremely essential to bring together experts in the fields of science and technology so that we can realize together the potential of research in any profession. This eventually resulted in organizing this conference. The objective of this important event is to evaluate and highlight the need to analyze critically how research and publications are playing a key role in the career of teaching professionals, or rather in any profession. Research and technology have penetrated into virtually all areas of operations of education and entwined with educational practices. This conference will definitely assist us to take a step forward to fulfill our aspirations. May I now take the pleasure of inviting our principal, Dr. R.V. Krishnaya Garu. He is a man of distinct vision, a prolific scholar, an able administrator, and a renowned academician. He has double NTech, one in ECE from NIT Warangal and one in CSC from JNTU Hyderabad. He was conferred with a doctorate in ECE from JNTU Anantapur. He rendered his services in various capacities at many reputed engineering colleges for over 2.5 decades. He has more than 150 publications in national and international journals. He has attended and organized several conferences and workshops. He keeps insisting in lifelong learning to update ourselves and deepen our knowledge and ultimately help in the technological advancement of our country. I am pleased to invite the convener of this conference, Dr. Gajula Ramanamurthy Garu, on behalf of Chebroolu Engineering College. I would like to present a glimpse of his profile. Dr. G. Ramanamurthy has been associated with the Faculty of Engineering and Technology, Multimedia University, Malaysia since 2005. Currently, Dr. Murthy is rendering his services as a professor in that institute. He has authored and co-authored several national and international publications, also working as a reviewer for reputed professional journals. Dr. Murthy is actively associated with different societies and academies around the world. He made his mark in the scientific community with his invaluable contributions and gained wide recognition from renowned subject experts around the world. Dr. Murthy has received several awards for his contributions to the scientific community. His research interest primarily lies in engineering and technology. Our heartfelt thanks to you, sir, for your valuable time and effort. I humbly welcome Dr. Ramanamurthy Garu to this conference, and I request him to give a message on this occasion.
Thank you. Respected principal, distinguished senior members of the organizing committee, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a great honor for me to invite you to this international conference organized by Chebroolu Engineering College under the incredible leadership of the Dr. K.V. Krishnaya, R.V. Krishnaya. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the committee members for their immense enthusiasm in making this event a reality. Conferences such as this provide a valuable opportunity for research scholars, industry specialists, and decision makers to share experiences on a common platform. I'm grateful to the many experts who have come today to share their knowledge with us. I also welcome the many representatives of the government, industry, associations, and research scholars who have joined us today. I'm sure you would have fruitful and rewarding exchanges in today's conference. I wish you every success with this important conference, and I look forward to learning about the outcome. Without much delay, now I would like to invite our committee members to kickstart the event. Thank you.
I deem it great honor to invite Dr. C.H. Satyanarayana Garu, the chairperson of the conference, on behalf of all of us. Let me give a brief introduction about him. Dr. C.H. Satyanarayana Garu is currently rendering his services as registrar and professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Kakinada. He received his PhD in 2007 from JNTU. He has more than 20 years of teaching and research experience and more than 10 years of administrative experience in various capacities as director, academic and planning, controller of examinations, and head of the department. He is a member of various administrative committees governed by AICTE, UGC, etc. He has supervised 25 PhD students and more than 200 master's students. He has published more than 125 research papers in international journals and conference proceedings. He is a senior member of IEEE. His research interests primarily include image processing, speech recognition, pattern recognition, network security, and big data analytics and computational intelligence. We are very grateful to you, sir, for accepting our invitation to chair this conference. May I now humbly welcome Dr. C.H. Satyanarayana Garu to deliver the keynote address.
Good morning, all of you. Respected all the dignitaries and the college management, Chevron Engineering College, and the principal, Dr. K.V. Krishnaiah Garu, and all the staff members of Chevron Engineering College, and all the dignitaries. A very good morning to one and all. At the outset, I am very much privileged to extend my profound gratitude to everyone present here on video conference. With the advent of technology, before I started the conference speech, first of all, I congratulate Dr. G.V. Ramanamurthy Garu. Ramanamurthy Garu, very happy to see you, sir. With the advent of technology, the proportions have altered. It is creeping into every aspect of our life, from simple calculations to complicated surgeries, and into the society at large. An individual, or rather a country, is said to be powerful based on intelligence. Human intelligence added with artificial intelligence can command the universe. Intelligent robots have great application potential in the service industry, education industry, and the medical industry. For example, many banks have an automated question answering robots. In the security field, anti-fraud systems have been able to intercept scam calls, and the monthly interception volume is more than 14 billion in China. In the management field, audit points for contracts and bills have also been implemented. Intelligent machines have also replaced manual audits, which can save hundreds of millions of costs each year. In the field of customer service, the intelligent customer service question answering robot can answer more than 210 billion times each month at present. In the telecommunication, companies are also very actively deploying AI applications in various industries, including intelligent education, intelligent medical treatment, and intelligent transportation, and intelligent industrial, intelligent agriculture, and other aspects. Similarly, machine learning strategies like genetic algorithms have long been used for intractable computational problems such as scheduling, and the neural networks not only to model and understand human learnings, but also for basic industrial control and monitoring. Though video recognition, artificial intelligence in the transportation field can provide a basis for decision making for our transportation with machine learning and even make decisions automatically. In the field of public security, the identification of images can provide a quick basis for the detection of public security cases and the location of suspects. Self-driving cars not only use artificial intelligence technology to allow the car to perceive its surroundings, but also allow the car to make decisions about what to do next and to manipulate the vehicle to achieve the purpose of self-driving. Intelligent robots are also very common in our lives. Before I conclude, I congratulate the Chevrolet Engineering College for conducting this type of online conferences. I look forward to all the presentations and all the best to all the participants. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Hello, Dinesh sir.
Ma'am, Chapandi.
Can we invite the participants?
Yeah, ma'am.
Hello, Dinesh sir.
Sir, Pulara sir, invite change, sir, first one.
Hello, Sai. Hello. Hello, Sai. Sir, Savita ma'am is there. Hello. Sir, already Savita ma'am is connected. Hello, ma'am.
Savita ma'am, please unmute yourself, ma'am.
Savita ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, Savita ma'am, you can start your presentation by sharing the PPT, ma'am.
Just okay, now it's visible.
Yeah, ma'am, it is visible, ma'am. You can start your presentation.
Actually, I published a paper that the paper title is Implementation of Wavelet Algorithm to Detect the Underground Targets using GPR. Here is the introduction. So the GPR is nothing but it's a ground penetrating radar unit which we had experimented in the IISc. It's a non-destructive testing method which is used to detect the underground targets. The underground targets are nothing but if there is a metal or a non-metal and all, we are going to detect by using this GPR machine. We are using this GPR machine. So in this GPR machine, it uses a microwave band, that is very high frequency and ultra high frequency of the radio frequency of the radio spectrum. In terms of gigahertz range, it is going to detect the underground targets. Okay. So whenever there is a target is present, this is actual setup which is used in the IISc. This is a GPR machine, and this is the demo of whatever we had detected underground. In the underground, we had placed a metal piece, and we are going to detect that reflections in this GPR machine. Okay, so the reflections from the target are to be collected by using the GPR machine. So here is the block diagram of the GPR source. Source transmitting antenna, that is it consisting of two antennas. One is transmitting antenna and the receiving antenna. when the transmitting antenna targets or transmits the waves to the target, it's again reflected back and it will be collected by the receiving antenna. From the receiving antenna, the whatever the image we'll get, that is called as a raw GPR image, raw ground penetrating radar image. That will be done the signal and or image processing technique to detect the target, to detect the target. So whatever the output of this receiving antenna, that will be represented in three forms. One is A scan, the second one is B scan, and the C scan. See, A scan is actually, it's a one-dimensional representation. B scan is a two-dimensional representation, and C scan is a three-dimensional representation. So we had taken the output in terms of two-dimensional representation, that is a B scan image. B scan image, that is a distance versus time. Distance versus time. Okay. So here is the problem statement, that is in this we are going to detect the underground utilities such as buried pipes, cables, wires, pavement layer thickness using the GPR. So whatever the output we'll get from the GPR machine, that it is, we can't see the target properly in that image. So we have to do the signal and image processing or signal processing techniques to enhance the quality of the image. So the main application which we had used in the ballast substructure. The ballast is nothing but in the railway track. Below the railway track, there it is called as a ballast. That is, ballast is nothing but a big sized stones. We are going to able to detect whether there is any damage in the ballast. The damage in the ballast can be detected by using this GPR machine. By using the GPR machine. Okay. So here these are the in one of the other application we had used the cavity. We are also detected the cavity. These are the cavities formation in the soil. Okay, these cavities also detected by using this GPR machine. So this is actually the GPR machine, as I told, and these are the specifications of whatever the data we had taken. Antenna, that is a 800 megahertz antenna, that is a Mala GPR unit. Length is whatever we had scanned, that is a 4.8 meters, and the breadth is 1.6 meter. Height of that this ballast is 0.6 meter. Density of the uh, stones we had used, that is 980 kg per meter cube. Length of the metal piece is 0.2 meter. That whatever we had buried underground, that is 0.2 meter. Depth of the metal piece buried is 0.4 meter. We are going to place this metal piece. Okay. So this is the images whatever we had conducted the experiments in IISc. This is the metal piece of 0.2 meter which will be placed below, and this um, track we had done in the IISc. So for this, I had implemented the wavelength algorithm, that is wavelength decomposition technique. That is first raw data, the GPR radargram, decomposition of the wavelength, computing the features like skewness, kurtosis, and the entropy. So first, whatever the output from the receiving antenna will get, that is called as a raw GPR radargram, that will be applied the wavelength algorithm. Wavelength actually it is a 10 level of wavelength decomposition we had applied, and we had used the mother wavelengths like Debeshi, SIM2, HAR and all we had used, and we had computed the features like skewness, kurtosis, and the entropy. Skewness, kurtosis, and the entropy. So actually skewness is nothing but it is a measure of the asymmetry of the data around the sample mean. This is a mathematical equation for calculating the skewness. So what is the necessary of using the skewness is, skewness actually it tells the, if the object buried is metal, if it is, if the shape of that metal, if it is considered it is a circle or it may be a flat, so either it is a positively skewed or a negatively skewed or it's a center. Like that we are going to distinguish by using this skewness parameter. The next one is kurtosis. Kurtosis actually, if there is a metal target, this GPR machine can detect both the metal as well as the non-metallic. The difference is in the metallic will get a very good number of reflections. That is, the amplitude or the peak level is higher compared to that of the non-metallic. So this kurtosis will detect either the whatever the object is placed, either it's a metal or a non-metal. Like that, we are going to calculate by using this Kudos. Okay, these are the readings I got by applying the wavelets. That is, as I told, wavelet R, wavelet DB2, DB3, SIM2, skewness, entropy, and the kurtosis are the three parameters. This is actually the signal from the GPR machine. For this, I had calculated the R, which is of 1.1954, 3.6, 5.3, DP2, 1.2128, 4.3, 4.2, for DB3. 1.3, 4.3. So like that, in some of the cases, I'm getting the good results from DB2, and in some of the results, I'm getting the good results from DB3. But the comparison and classifications I had to do in the so this is actually the readings of the ROI. That is, ROI is nothing but the region of interest. So whatever the output we are getting from the after applying the wavelets, so only this portion wherever there is the target is there. So here the reflections are not there. At this point from point to point 4 to point 5, point 3 to point 5, the reflections are higher compared to the other side. So the metal piece, whichever it is buried at this point, so we are going to calculate the kurtosis, and for only for this portion I have taken the region of interest. For that I had applied the skewness, entropy, and the kurtosis value. These are the readings for that. So this one, same thing for the other different types of targets like metal, coal, pipe, and all we had done. For this coal and all, I'm not getting any proper results. Only for the metals, we have got the good results compared to the. So the conclusion is the representation of the B-scan image it can be processed by using the GPR. And the implementation, we had applied the wavelet signal processing techniques to the B-scan. Like mother wavelets R, DB2, DB3, SIM2, and all we had used. And we had calculated the three parameters like skewness, kurtosis, and entropy. But DB2 and DB3 performs better compared to the other algorithms, compared to the other wavelets. So the future work is only the main thing is we have to calculate the depth and size of the target is the problem in the GPR machine, because we are not able to define from which trace to which trace the object is buried properly. So that is the main thing we have to work on this in future, like the depth and the size of the target. To detect that one, we should use some algorithms which should detect the size and depth of the target accurately, and the development of algorithms for better interpretation of the GPR radar. That is, interpretation is again one of the big challenge in this GPR, because for metal, for any other conditions, or for any other targets also, it behaves same. So better interpretation should be one of the future work. Let's yeah, this much on the sir. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Ah,
Yeah, yeah.
hello. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
okay.
conclusion and future work. Okay, thank you.
Dinesh sir.
చెప్పండి సార్. సార్
Sir, when can we get
Yeah.
the certificates? Sir?
Ma'am, that I will update you in a mail, ma'am.
okay, sir, is there any questions from Satyanarayan sir? I request you to ask any questions regarding the presentation, or Ramanamurthy sir, we also request you. Please, sir.
And participants also.
Yeah, and participants also. If anybody is having any doubts regarding this presentation, ask now. So you can unmute yourself and you can we are.
Why only the emphasis is given on V-scan image, like only on two-dimensional? Is there
No,
any particular reason for that?
No, sir. Actually, we can do the three-dimensional also. If it is a three-dimensional, then we'll get a clarity in the image. but it is the starting stage of my research that I had done the B-scan image processing. In,
Yeah, Pullara sir, is there any
Yeah.
question on your side?
Yeah, no, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Shall we call another next
Yes,
participant,
sir.
sir?
Yes, sir. We can move to the next one.
Hello,
Sir,
Sai,
thank
sir.
you.
Yeah. Good morning, sir. I'm here.
Ma'am,
Yeah,
please
share
stop.
your PPT.
Ma'am,
Hello.
please stop
Sure,
your
sir.
screen sharing.
Yeah.
Savita, ma'am,
Yes, sir.
please stop your screen sharing, ma'am, so that another person will share their screen.
Can I leave the meeting, sir, or
No. Stay in the meeting, ma'am. Stay in the meeting and listen to all the participants' PPTs.
Yeah.
Ma'am, on the top of the screen, if you move your mouse, there is one option called a stop screen share.
Let's stop. No.
1 second, ma'am. I will make it done.
Sir, can you see my screen, sir?
Yeah, okay, sir. Now you can share your screen, sir. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is visible, sir.
Yeah. Is it visible, sir? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, sir, it is visible.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Respected Ramanamurthy, sir. Thank you for this seminar, conference presented here. So during this lockdown. So here is my work about. I'm a research scholar of Annamala University and also working as assistant professor in ML Institute of Technology. So I have submitted this paper as a review work of my my PhD work. So as part of my work, I have done a small review there exploring the various data mining and machine learning techniques. So the understanding of whatever I have done in the area what I have chosen, I have marked this as a paper. Yeah, moving on. One second. Yeah. So today's agenda, the important points I want to discuss is in my survey, what are the things I have learned that I have presented as a paper. Yeah, as everybody know, data mining and machine learning are very key areas of research. Every research scholar or anyone who is part of research need to learn the basics of all the research. So suppose if you are considering a fresher who is trying to be part of any research, you need to explore all the various methods as part of data mining and machine learning. So I just wanted to make an understanding that what are the various algorithms as part of machine learning and data mining which will be most widely used. And at the end, I just choose some different methods which are suitable for. So in this paper, I have set up important points which ascertain and comprehend about data mining and its techniques. Yeah, so data is a very important part of any organization. We need to be very clear with understanding of what is data, because every time it's very difficult for us to manually take all the search for the data. It's very difficult for us to find out the hidden parameters over there. So if you want to, as data mining says, it's extracting hidden knowledge. If you want to extract the hidden knowledge from data, you need to explore various machine learning techniques. So in data mining, as everybody is aware, there are many algorithms like supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. So, and the continuation of that, we'll be moving on for machine learning, where you'll be having advancement algorithms through which you can extract a lot of hidden parameters. So, in this literature, we have found some important techniques, and I have presented in this paper. Yeah, looking on to the next slide. So, I have just taken a reference from a paper article. So some important things which everybody should know is about what are the different machine learning techniques. As said, supervised learning is something like target variable is already explained. So like a teacher is already giving some input and you the output. That is very easy to understand. And regression and classification come under supervised learning. So moving on, unsupervised learning is like target variable is not known. It's like you're playing with some system and you need to learn. So it's learning by yourself automatically. And clustering and association like a priori and FP growth. All these come under association mining and clustering. Yeah. So moving on for some insights about clustering. Clustering is about collection of similar data points at one place. Yeah, it's a very basic mechanism of data mining and machine learning. So you need to find out what are similar points and assign them the labels, because once you assign the labels, it's very easy for algorithm to understand what is the input you're giving and what is the output you need to get. So the main advantage is that it is easily adapted to changes, and Usual features like if you're going for introduction, it's like identifying some similar points of intrusion, category like yes or no. All these things can be done using clustering. So some important clustering methods what we have learned as part of this work is hierarchical method where you'll be using agglomerative and divisive approaches. Partition methods like expectation maximization, graph theoretic clustering. So in density based, we have dbScan like to remove the noise. As part of my previous work, I have used dbScan approach, and in the current work, what I am using, I'll be using for density based approach, where there will be a lot of noise in data that can be removed. And next, model based techniques are like decision trees and neural networks. Neural networks, like in deep learning, you'll be having like artificial networks. So all these are some important classification clustering methods which we need to learn as part of this work. Some important applications of clustering, like can use in wherever you have data, basically we can go for clustering. So if you're actually interested in social networking analysis like sentiment analysis, you can go for type of data like which is the positive and which is negative in medical image processing. So everywhere where you have a lot of data, you can go for clustering. Yeah, some classification methods what we have explored is KNN, which is best suitable for small data sets. So here K is the value which we need to select, and it should be an odd value to say how many clusters, how many separations you want. So to identify the nearest neighbor, suppose if I take K value as 3, I will be considering 3 neighbors as the input. So that will be easy to classify the data points. So naive-Bayes approach is a probabilistic approach based on Bayes theorem. It is very efficient algorithm which will be used for easy classification. So whenever you are having some features, in particular about some class, if it is unrelated to presence of any other features, you will be going for naive-Bayes classification. And this is a very powerful method because it relies on Bayes theorem. And logistic regression is like a category like just saying that yes or no, true or false like things, and it is very easy to implement. And nowadays we are using applying this using R and getting the efficient results. And decision tree, as discussed, it is a model-based technique which is used for classification and predictions. So there you have some important parameters like entropy, information gain, and Gini index, which play a key role in identifying what is the root element. By constructing a decision tree, you can make some decisions which will be easy for a decision maker. So random forest is the advancement of in decision tree. So like in decision tree, previously we had ID3, C4.5, J48 algorithms. So now recently in machine learning, we are mostly concentrating on random forest where we have like, it is also used for classification and regression trees. We call it as CART. Once you can learn about bagging method, which is very important as part of your random forest. So it is said that if you are doing a decision tree approach, random forest gives you better results when compared with other approaches. Yeah, coming to the conclusion part. So as part of this work, mainly we have concentrated on the important aspects of data mining as part of my work. And in the next phases in my work, I have selected dbScan approach for this, and I want to implement my data with respect to dbScan and get some results. So there I will be using like classification and clustering methods. Yeah, and coming to this scope of this paper is limited to survey of various algorithms and methods, which will be useful for the beginner who is starting the research work. And finally, as I said in my work, the work which I have taken is about biomedical data analysis, where you'll be having IC50 early predictions, which you need to train the algorithm and then predict the molecular data automatically. That is some important research as part of chemistry field, yeah, which is undergoing this in process. These are some of the references what I have taken from various articles for this paper. Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, I have done with the presentation, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir, I request all the participants who are listening at this one, I request if there are any questions, please ask now. Ramanamurthy, sir, is there any questions from your side?
What's the basic difference between the machine learning and then the data mining?
Yes, sir.
Maybe that part, yes, that part maybe is missing in the presentation.
Okay. Nothing, sir. It's not a big difference. Actually, data mining is the beginning of any work. So machine learning is like advancement where we'll be learning like neural networks. Everything comes under this part of machine learning. So if you are moving on for advancements like TensorFlow and all these methods, which are not part of your previous data mining. So in data mining, we may use like Vector tool or some basic tools for analysis. So if you are having some complex data sets for analysis, Vector might not be suitable. So we go on for machine learning methods. So both are actually like synonyms only, sir. There's no much difference.
Service vector machines also come under the same category, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. As well, in my article, I have taken SVM also part of my work, but due to the time limit in presentation, I have taken only some slides here, sir.
Oh,
So, yeah.
that's fine.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, sir. Pulara, sir, can we move to the next one?
Yeah. Paper ID M51. His name is Sir. Paper ID 51. Can you? 1 minute, sir. I will
Paper ID M51. Is there anyone?
Hello.
Yeah, ma'am.
Good morning, sir.
Ma'am, your paper ID is 51, ma'am.
Yes, sir. My paper ID is 51. My name is Aditi Datta.
Yeah, ma'am.
Shall I start my presentation, sir, now?
Okay, ma'am. Share your screen and start your presentation.
Okay, sir. Just give me a second. I'm going to share my PowerPoint presentation. Hello.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. You can.
Yeah, ma'am.
So I just want to check. Can you see my presentation?
Sir, Dinesh sir, screen share చేయండి.
Okay, ma'am. You can share now, ma'am. The permission is already given.
Okay. I think I'm sharing my presentation.
Okay, one second, ma'am. I will make you as host. Okay. Try now, ma'am. Please try now.
Okay, sir. Okay. Hello. Sir, can you see my presentation now? Is it visible, sir?
No, ma'am. It is not visible. Ma'am. Okay, ma'am. It is visible now. Ma'am, are you going with the mobile phone?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. No problem, ma'am. Continue.
Because I have no desktop availability here, so I'm just using my mobile phone.
No problem, ma'am. No problem. Continue.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, dignitaries. Good morning, all the professors, senior professor, associate professor, assistant professor, all the faculty members. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity to me to present this paper in the conference. So I'm presenting a paper, an international conference on societal intelligence systems associated with Chebrola Engineering College. My name is Aditi Datta. I'm assistant professor working in the Department of Management Studies in Vignan Institute of Information Technology, Duvada, which is in Visakhapatnam. Thank you so much for allowing me to attend this conference and present the paper. My paper is basically on management paper. So here is my paper title, and effectiveness of the determinants of employees' job satisfaction and job performance. It's actually a case study, an empirical study which we have done, and this study is done on the healthcare sector, which is an Ethiopian context. Like the main author, the first author of this paper is Dr. Mohana Murli Krishna. He is a senior professor in our college. So with the help of him, we have collected data. Hello. We have collected this data from the people health sector in the Ethiopia. From that data, we have made this paper, and I'm the second author. I'm assistant professor, and we also have a third author, which is Dr. N. Ramya. She's associate professor. She did the statistical. She used statistical tools to complete this paper. So this is the title of the paper. Coming to this paper context, like we have dealt with the determinants, which are one of the important thing for job satisfaction and performance, such as pay, what are the main determinants for job satisfaction and increase the performance of an employee. And the determinants are, we have used pay structure, promotion, job safety, security, working conditions, job autonomy, relationship with co-workers, relationship with supervisors, and nature of the job. So these are the determinants we have focused on to identify the job satisfaction level, because ultimately we all know that the employees, if they are highly satisfied, if they are very happy with the job, then the performance will always have a good impact. The performance will have a quality impact. So here we have checked the determinants. And if you see a case study is done on the hospitals of Havasa. Havasa is a place in Ethiopia. In that place, we have taken a few hospitals. From that hospital's employees, we have done the study. Where if we come to the study, a probability sampling is taken. Stratified random sampling we have used, where 134 is the population and 99 respondents were selected. But 94 respondents returned the questionnaire with 95% of response rate. So to analyze the data by using, so we have used here SPSS software, which is version 19, for descriptive statistics, tables, Pearson correlation coefficient, regression analysis, and reliability test. So coming to the introduction of this paper, we have gone with the World Health Organization and Global Health Workforce Alliances have been focusing on attending healthcare workers, particularly on the pervasive problem. So here we have attended the problem with staffing shortage, poor job conditions, low remuneration, and extensive migration. As the backbone of the health system, health workers usually account for the largest share of public expenditure on health. So these are the areas why we have focused on these are the areas, because this is the condition which you have seen there. Developing high level of commitment among health professionals is one of the main human resource development policies. So here we have taken shared values including vocational commitment towards patients, patient care, and improved medical services are factors that influence health professional positively. So as we all know that to take care of the health, to improve the employees' performances, the job satisfaction is very, very important, and that is what we have taken note here. Currently the shortage of healthcare employees in hospital, and focusing on the job satisfaction issues of these employees can be a constructive strategy to increase retention of current professionals as well as to attract qualified professionals. Coming to the empirical review of the healthcare sector, sir, we have focused on 9 impacts, 9 determinants of job satisfaction, and those impacts are reward and pay on job satisfaction and performance. Second impact is of promotion on job satisfaction and employee performance. Third impact is of job safety and security on job satisfaction and performance. Fourth impact is of working condition. Fifth, we have taken the impact of autonomy on job satisfaction. Sixth one, we have taken the relationship with co-workers and on job satisfaction. Seventh one, we have taken the relationship with supervisors. And eighth one, we have taken the nature of work on job satisfaction. And ninth one, we have taken the job satisfaction on performance. So these are the determinants we have focused on, and then we have done an empirical review on these 9 determinants. So we have prepared a conceptual model. If you see here, if I take job satisfaction, job performance as a dependent variable, the independent variables for this are pay, promotion, job safety and security, working condition, job autonomy, relationship with co-workers, supervisors, and nature of the job. So these are the independent variables which are implying for the to build satisfaction, dissatisfaction among the employees, and ultimately that result to job performance. Coming to the research methodology, sir. The basic specific objective we have focused is to assess the impact of determinants of job satisfaction and performance of health professionals in different hospitals, to assess the overall job satisfaction and performance level of employees in various hospitals, to identify the relationship between factors which influence the job satisfaction and performance level of health professionals in hospital, and to offer valuable suggestions. So ultimately, at the end of the paper, we have given some suggestions to how to improve the job satisfaction, and how we can see the performance level of healthcare professionals in the hospitals of Hawassa, Ethiopia. We have used this formula, sir. This formula is given by Cotters. Formula which we see here is n is equals to z square into p into k into n by e square by n minus 1 plus x z square into p into q. By using this formula, we have taken the sample size, and the sample size is 99. According to sample size of the study 99, study samples are allocated among the 8 stratas on the basis of the proportion as follow. I'm going to show you this. Now I'm going to show you this tables, how we have divided the people, how we have proportion distributed the population from each tantrum. So we have taken the professions which we have focused on collecting data are, we have taken doctors, health officers, BSc nurse, clinical nurse, midwife, pharmacy, laboratory, and the other employees working in the hospitals. So total number of professionals we have taken is 134, and the total number of population is 100%, and the sample size among this tantrum according to the equationers we have taken 99. We have also made a reliability test, so reliability and validity of the measuring instrument also we have taken. According to Conbrach Alpha, so the number of items is 36. So because the reliability of question is 0.878, which is acceptable because the reliability level is more than 0.7. So because we have got here 0.7, so we can say the reliability is there, and it is acceptable. So the method of data analysis which we have done is we have used a 5-point Likert scale analysis is used on various descriptive tools like SPSS software version 19 is being used to analyze the data. And descriptive analysis such as frequency, we have done the frequency test, we have made mean and standard deviation test, multiple regression and Pearson correlation coefficient and reliability test level is also made to find out the result. And so because there is a clause has kept that the PowerPoint presentation should be only between 5 to 10, so I couldn't keep all the tables on the PPT. I just have shown the only major tables on the PPT. So here I'm showing you the mean and standard deviation been done on job performance. These are the questions which you can see. Basing on that, if you can see, the mean and standard deviation is between 2 and 1, 2.17 and 2.6. So it like we can say it is the mean and standard deviation is healthy. From the analysis, the overall performance of health professionals of hospitals were helped to deliver quality services effectively and efficiently to society. So to increase the quality of service and to satisfy the customer, the organization should facilitate conditions. So this is what we have found out from the job performance table. The overall job satisfaction table, if you see, we have taken a mean and a standard deviation. From the table, you can see that we have computed responses. Mean is 2.24. So besides the computed mean value of the response for that 2.39 indicates the respondents were satisfied on the current evaluation process of the organization. From the analysis, the level of overall satisfaction of health professional is hospital industry, where is good condition, we can say. So next one, sir, we have done a regression analysis of dependent and independent variables. As shown on the figure, adjusted R-square is equals to 0.276, which indicates that the independent variable mentioned in the study determinants is 27.6% variance on the level of job satisfaction, and the remaining other determinants not included in the study determine 62.4% of variance in the job satisfaction. So here we can say that this relationship with supervisors increase by 1%, increase the job satisfaction by 22.8%. So the relationship between supervisors should be very, very important, which we have suggested at the end of the recommendation. So this indicates relationship with supervisors has strongest influence on job satisfaction among the given determinants of job satisfaction. And here we have also seen that they indicates from the independent. So I'm extremely sorry. I think This PPT is not able to show you the table here, but you can see the description analysis which is have mentioned. The table is not visible, so I'll just read out the description for you. So here we have taken the beta and t-test signed, two-tailed R and regression R square. So here they indicates that the favorabilism of the nature of job has strongest influence on job performance from the given determinants of job performance. So coming to the conclusion, sir, I would say that finally overall job satisfaction performance is good in good condition among the health professionals, because the Pearson correlation coefficient says that R is equals to 0.553 for relationship with the supervisor indicates the strongest relation with this job satisfaction and followed by job autonomy with Pearson correlation coefficient of 0.516. But the Pearson correlation coefficient 0.266 indicates the weakest relationship between with the co-workers and job satisfaction. But here, if you see the Pearson correlation coefficient, R is 0.632. Longest with the job performance, wherein the coefficient, Pearson correlation coefficient 0.315 with pay and job performance. Ultimately, from the independent variable relationship with supervisors as computed, beta is equals to 0.228 is greater than the 0.5, which has these strongly influenced with dependent variable with job satisfaction. So we have made some findings here. We have came with a couple of findings from the data. But I'll go with each finding. The first finding is that the health professional pay system was not appropriate with what they have been doing in the organization. And the analysis indicates that the promotion system among the health professional was well designed. The second finding is too that the current trend about safety and security of the organization is good position, and this working condition in the organization was suitable for health professionals. From the analysis, the relationship between co-workers is harmonious with likewise with supervisor. The third finding we made is the predator variables has relation with job satisfaction and job performance. And the fourth finding is with supervisors have strongest influence on job satisfaction from the job determinant of satisfaction. And the final finding which we have done is favorabilism of the nature of job has strongest influence on job performance. So these are the findings we made from the data which we have collected from the professionals in the health sectors in Ethiopia. And we have came up with some recommendations, sir. So recommendations are like we have asked them to increase their commitment to the organization and increase the pay structure. We asked them to provide the necessary tools and trainings in the health of professionals so that the training may also increase the working condition more attractive for the health professionals. And the organization should continue by strengthening the autonomy on job to increase the level of satisfaction and increase the health professionals to sustain the relationship among each other by resolving any other conflicts arises among them. The organization should increase the support to health professionals and quick response should be given to improve the quality of service. The organization should facilitate the nature of work to make the health professional efficient and effective. And finally, we have recommended the organization should facilitate the conditions to enhance the level of overall satisfaction, like health, because satisfied health professional can serve the customers more better and efficiently. So at the end of the session, I conclude the presentation by saying the research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what nobody else has today. So this is the quotation I want to give at the end of the presentation. So this is all about the paper. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Hope I met all the requirement I made by the journal. Thank you. Sir, I'm done with the presentation, sir.
Yeah, ma'am. Ramamurthy sir, go with the questions.
Well, in this kind of analytical survey, usually
Yes,
we used to have hypothesis, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Like the determinants you have shown, Your hypothesis is actually matching with your SPSS outcome.
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sir. Thank you, sir. And is there anyone is waiting to ask questions? You can ask now. Fularo, sir.
Sir.
Yeah, Jagadishwari madam is waiting, sir.
Yeah.
Ma'am, Jagadishwari ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Hello, good morning, sir. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, ma'am, you are.
Yes.
Ma'am.
Yes.
And please share your screen.
Okay, sir. Hello.
Yeah, ma'am, it is visible, ma'am.
Is it visible, sir? Yeah. Good morning to all the dignitaries and my fellow faculty members in this International Conference on Societal Intelligence Systems. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to present my paper. Today, this paper is dealing with hard hat detection using deep learning techniques. My fellow faculty members are Mrs. G. Nagamani, Mrs. B. Sneha, and Dr. G. Nagasati, sir, from BBRIT Hyderabad College of Engineering for Women. Yeah. Hard hat is nothing but a personal protective equipment, which is a type of helmet which is predominantly used in any workplace environments like construction sites or industrial sites, so that it protects the head from any type of injuries. Whenever a person falls from higher heights, or if any object falls on a person's head from great heights, there's a high possibility of head injuries, because of which many workforce are losing their lives also. So this is one attempt. This paper makes an attempt to come up with some system where any person who is entering into the workplace or in any construction site will be alarmed, so that will be alarmed whenever there is no protective and protective equipment for them. So it is very much necessary for developing such innovative methods using machine learning on deep learning methods to monitor the safety of workers at such construction sites. So our aim is to detect whether the workers are wearing a hard hat or not when they are entering the construction site. So day in and day out, whenever any country, at least in a country like India, where the constructions happen very often to build a new society, many people work in those construction sites under unsafe conditions, and thousands of them are losing their lives every year. There's a whole big statistics given in OSHA Act, which I'll show in the next slides, where it shows that there is a large number of such injuries or people losing their lives also. So to protect the nation's construction workforce, there are methods to improve safety measures in construction sites, which is of paramount importance. So aim of this paper is to propose one system which can check whether a worker is wearing a hard hat. This is basically done in our system by taking the surveillance videos which are which are collected from the cameras which are kept at the entrance of the construction site. So analyzing those construction surveillance videos, which are then each of these videos are again divided into frames, and in those frames the hard hat identification will be done. This can also be done using by taking the pictures of the people at the entrance of the site, and then those pictures will be divided into grids using the algorithm. These are the literature, or these are the papers that we have looked for coming up with such a system. As I've already discussed, OSHA is nothing but Occupational Safety and Health Act, which has come up in 1970, which was passed to prevent the workers from being killed or seriously harmed at work. So this law requires that any employer who is employing some workers with work conditions that work conditions should be free from any sort of dangers. So this act created the act which is created sets and enforces protective workplace safety and health standards. It also provides information, training, and assistance to workers and employers as well. This is all about the act that is to be implemented at all the sites, and the algorithm that we have used in this system is YOLO algorithm, which is the abbreviation is you only look once. The network is trained to look only once. Internally, YOLO algorithm also uses ResNet. Like it looks the image only once to detect the object. And this algorithm is the most effective and faster convolution neural network. Whenever this algorithm is applied on images, the image is divided into grids, and in each grid, it it find it extracts the features. And here in this algorithm, in this system, the feature is nothing but the head region. So head region is the feature that will be extracted, and it looks for the head region in each of these grids. Okay, and if it finds any the feature here is head region, and if it finds the feature, it predicts the bounding box. It draws a bounding boxes and predicts the probability for each region. Basically, the whole algorithm goes in two steps. The first step is construction worker detection from the collected construction surveillance images or videos, and the partition each of the relevant construction surveillance images into a set of object regions. Then feature extraction is done. Then it divides the images into regions and predicts the bounding boxes and probabilities. Whenever the probability of finding such a feature is found to be less than 0.4, those grid regions are suppressed. This is called non-maxima suppression. Non-NMS threshold is in our system is set to be 0.4. So whenever a person or the image when the image is divided into grids and those grids doesn't find the feature, then usually the NMS threshold will be less than 0.4. If it is greater than 0.4, it means that it has found a head region with the image what we are looking for, that is hard hat. The results that we have found on different images is something like this. If you can observe here, the helmet here is found with 0.90 probability, which is greater than our NMS threshold. So it is accepted, and it is said that it has drawn a bounding box. Whenever there is no bounding box, it means that the NMS threshold is less than 0.4 and that particular image is suppressed. Here, if you can see in the results, as I can follow, if you can follow my cursor movements, here is a person without a bounding box, where he is not wearing a hard hat. So whenever there's no hard hat, there's no bounding box as such, and this obviously there's no probability of also. So automatic detection of hard hat is generally should be implemented in our country also, which will be helpful for the safety of the construction site workers. And this, when interfaced with many machine learning technique, this is one such algorithm which will help in which is part of machine learning, which will help in automatic detection. We can detect whether the person is wearing a hard hat or not. Such system, if it comes into action, it will lead to decreased number of fatalities in construction and industrial sites. In future, if this system, if this particular project or paper, if this is implemented, probably it can be extended to to the next level, where it can be interfaced with the alarming system or sound system. Whenever any person enters a workstation, this machine learning will help identify that the person is not wearing a hard hat, and some alarm or alerting system should be given to the higher authorities or nearby people, so that it can generate, so that the person can again wear the hard hat, and then only he can enter into the workstation. That is a future scope that we are looking forward. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present my paper. uh, so my paper is done, sir.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. And
Yeah.
I request, if there are any questions from the participants, you are welcome now.
Why is the threshold is chosen to be 0.4? Is there any specific reason for that?
Yeah, YOLO algorithm usually takes the NMS threshold of 0.4. So when it means that it is less than 0.5%, like 50%, less than 50% or less than 40% is usually considered to be that we are not finding a person with hard hat. So it is generally that is the image that can be interfaced with the alarming system, so that an alarm can be generated saying that the person is not wearing a hard hat.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And is there still anyone waiting for the proper presentation? Sir, who is this Moto G5S?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sir, are you going? Are you there for any proper presentation, sir?
Sir, yes, sir. Actually, Muniyya, sir. This is Muniyya from MLR ITM Hyderabad.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Yeah, sir. Okay. We don't find the name, so that is why we are asking.
Actually, yeah, I am paper ID is M3236, sir.
Okay. Nagamani, ma'am. Nagamani, ma'am. Okay, Pulara, sir.
Sir, hello.
Ma'am, are you there for any presentation or?
No, sir. It is me and Jagdishwari madam combined
Yeah,
with that
okay.
hard hat
You
preparation.
both are publishing. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Barbara, sir.
Sir, now can I give you the presentation, sir?
Yeah, you can start your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, please share your screen, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir, it is visible, sir.
Sir, it is not visible, sir.
It is visible, sir, but.
Yes, sir. Actually, I took the snap from
I
the.
think you went for taking the pictures and you are showing the pictures, I think.
Yes, sir. That's the reason. Okay. Good morning, sir. Hello. Hello.
Sir, it is audible and visible, sir. You can proceed, sir.
Thank you, sir. My name is A. Muniyya, Associate Professor MLR ITM, Madhya Lakshmi Institute of Technology and Management, Hyderabad. So my paper on microgrid control methods around the world, state of art. So Introduction to microgrid. So what is meant by microgrid? So the microgrid is nothing but it provides the power to the different loads. Other than that, originally existed power stations. So for suppose we have the power stations at different sources like thermal power stations, hydrogen power stations, nuclear power station, diesel power station. Other than those power stations, the power is generated by the different non-conventional sources. Then in the sense of lower capacity, like 20 kilowatts or 50 kilowatts, 100 kilowatts or 200 kilowatts, 500 kilowatts. So especially for the small loads, for suppose if you consider a domestic home in the village, it requires only 2 tube lights, 2 lights and 1 TV. So for that purpose, the power is generated by a small system that is nothing but the microgrid. So then the microgrid consists of a distributed generation, loads, immediate storage, controller, point of common coupling.
I think you are disconnected, sir. Munaya, sir, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, each photo is actually again slide share. So that is the problem, sir. So
Okay,
you
okay.
take for each slide. Then from all photos, I am taking to back, sir.
Okay, okay. Okay, sir, continue.
Actually, this is the block diagram of microgrid if you consider. So if you just observe that the stability base office and photovoltaic cell. So we have the main microgrid consider, if you consider that solar cells. From the solar cells, the power is generated. From that power, base office, and from that, then the cells are batteries. So from that, again, it is connected to the the electric pole. From the electric pole to again one more electric pole, that is where that is going to be stepped down. From that step down of low voltage, then it is connected to the loads, distribution sites, nothing but domestic loads like houses, apartments, commercial complex, so like that. From that, again, it is connected to the battery storage. From battery storage to again photovoltaic cell, photovoltaic cells again base office. So like that, it is a recycling process of the microgrid system. So if you just observe this, so this is nowadays in all areas, solar panels are arranged in the roof of or at the top of the apartments or at the top of government sector organizations or at the top of public sector organizations or at the top of commercial complex and shopping malls. So from the sunset or sun rays, the PV cells, photovoltaic cell receive the sun rays and it is converted to the voltage. Then from that voltage, we are going to produce the power. Then power can be replaced by the different loads. So this is one example of how the PV cells of the solar panels are connected in the different one area in village areas. So what is the need of microgrid? So microgrid could be the answer to our energy crisis. Transmission losses gets highly reduced. In the case of other existed generation power grid actually. So in the case of existed power grid, there is so many losses are occurred so that the output power or the output load is going to be affected. So once the losses are increases, then automatically regulation is increases, then the efficiency is going to be decreased. So that is the main problem in the case of existed power grid or interconnected power stations. What we are going to know nowadays we are following. So from that, in the case of microgrid, the losses are highly reduced, then the efficiency is high, and the loads are going to be effectively utilized by the power. So those are that is the necessity of microgrid, and microgrid results in substantial saving and cuts emissions without major changes to lifestyles. And that also provide high quality and reliable energy supply to critical loads. So just this is the main components of microgrid. Components of microgrid. Just you observe that the diagram. So the diagram consists of the different sources of the power generation parts actually. So the wheel is there, that is the thing, but the power is generated by wind power, and by the side of that wheel then that is solar panels, and from that other side that is thermal power station, and from other side solar sun rays. So then from this is hydel power station. So different sources. That means the components of microgrid is nothing but distributed generation, loads, energy storage systems, static disconnected switch, controller, mode switching device, point of common coupling. So like this, we are connecting all the parts into the microgrid. So is it audible, sir? Excuse me. Hello, sir. Hello.
Sir, it is audible, sir. You can proceed. Munaya, sir, it is audible, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So energy storage in microgrid. Actually, we will store the energy in the microgrid. How? So it gives the benefits of high performance, avoid costly downtime and battery replacements, very high cycle life, extremely abuse tolerant, ability to stand at partial state of charge, high efficiency, self-balancing, video, operating temperature range, minimal and degradation. So this is also one of the microgrid station. We can take the example. So this is wind turbine, and this is wind turbine, and another one is a substation and natural gas generation, ESS energy storage system, fuel cell energy, and solar panels, energy storage system, natural gas in grid switch. So like this, we can combine all the different energy sources or power sources, the components in a sequence manner, then we can generate the power. So that is nothing but the microgrid best example. This is also hybrid microgrid actually. So hybrid microgrid means we will join in nowadays electric vehicles are running. So that means with the help of electric supply, car, four-wheeler and two-wheeler, and easiest the scooty also nowadays is running with the help of electric supply. And recently it was started in the Hyderabad city, and as well as the hybrid vehicles of the buses. And the electric buses are running in the Hyderabad city from the international airport to Samshabad to different areas, and getting the passengers with them in easy manner. So just see this. the existing microgrid ventures. So just you go back to before 25 years and 30 years in the India, then how it is the electricity is started with the help of candle. So nowadays the electricity trends are developed, and in almost all areas in the village areas also the power sectors are developed, and the power is distributed in different areas, and with normal rural areas also it is developed and it distributed, and the loads and consumers are utilized in a very effective manner. So that means in a way, in those days the people in the agriculture field or the people in rural areas and the people in village areas are suffering with the lack of power. But in nowadays, because development of in all the sectors, in power sectors, and because of development of in all electricity development in different areas, the power is developed, and the distribution transmission is developed in different areas, and the power generation also developed in different areas, so that the power can be supplied to the consumers, different consumers in the effective manner. So this is one best example in comparison of nowadays situation and in olden days before 20 years situation of the power sector side. So advanced microgrid and R&D program participants. Advanced microgrid is nothing but just if you take this in a sequence manner, how the power sector and microgrid and research and development in microgrid side is developed is nothing. If you consider that, that is tools, R&D, testing and standards, and cost of reduction techniques. So in public sector, in commercial or in society, the cost per unit generated is less. So then only the consumers or the utilities are going to be ready to purchase the power and utilize the power in a little bit, reducing the cost of the power generation. So these are the steps involved in the advanced microgrid R&D program participants. So this is integrated microgrid. What is meant by integrated microgrid? So integrated is nothing but if you consider that two or more sources and join together and generate the power. So that is nothing but integrated microgrid. So that is distribution substation, full substation microgrid, full feeder microgrid, partial feeder microgrid, and bulk supply connection. So that is nothing but sub-transmission and single customer microgrid, feeder, off feeder. So like this and other feeders. So in the case of feeder system, radial feeder system, ring main feeder system, so different feeders are fed at one end and fed at both ends. So like this, we are combining two or more sources, then supply the power to the consumers. That is nothing but integrated microgrid. So just you observe this, this is the graph actually. The yellow indicates that yellow and green and black. Actually, the y-axis indicates that cost of energy in terms of dollar per kilowatt hours or in terms of rupees in kilowatt hours we can take. And the x-axis indicates that the units per generated. So the yellow color indicates that solar photovoltaic power generation. The black indicates that diesel, typical diesel range, and the green indicates that wind turbine power generation. So out of these three, solar, wind and diesel, the solar power consumption, solar power utilization is high, so that you can observe that the graph from top side to and that means gradually it is going to be decay. But whereas in the case of wind power, so that means wind power is generated is less, and also the consumption also very less. And if you consider that diesel power station or diesel power also some areas, so it is little bit high, and sometimes it is going to be down. Up and down situations are going to be happen in the case of diesel power stations. So hybrid microgrid. Now, a better model is emerging that combines newly cost-effective renewable energy from wind or solar sources with conventional diesel or gas fuel generation. These installations called hybrid microgrids that also employ energy storage to add power system stability and enable future energy cost reduction. Solar tower thermal storage. So this is solar thermal tower storage. Solar tower thermal storage. Just to observe that all our solar PV panels are arranged and one tower is located. So from this solar panels, the power is getting and it is supplied to the tower. So then the power is going to be utilized. Power is going to be utilized. That is nothing but the solar tower thermal storage. Future scope. Public policy objectives: 80% clean electricity by 2035, and RPS, CPS you can get access to reliable, affordable, climate adaptation, sustain economic growth and invention, new energy products and services, efficient markets, reduce batteries for new technologies, clean energy jobs. So these are the future scope. So these are references, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, okay. Sir, is there any question, sir?
Any questions?
Is there any questions?
Is this microgrid concept can be used only for conventional or non-conventional, or we can make it a hybrid combination?
A maximum non-conventional and hybrid combination also, sir, but not conventional.
Okay.
Conventional, it uses the more power generation, high capacity like 500 megawatt, 200 megawatt, 300 megawatt. So for suppose if you take conventional sources, thermal power station, so we can generate the power. Thermal power station, we can take example Ramagundam thermal power station, Vijayawada thermal power station, and hydel power stations, Srisailam. So different conventional nuclear power stations. So these are the higher power capacities. Whereas in the non-conventional sources, we can generate the power from solar, tidal, wind power, biogas, and other sources. So the microgrid exists in non-conventional sources maximum and hybrid also. So nowadays, non-conventional sources, hybrid vehicles are coming in electric sector, e-vehicles are coming, and four-wheelers, two-wheelers are running latest technologies.
That's fine.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, Ramanamurthy, sir. And Basmati, ma'am.
Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Thank you, sir, for the international conference presentation in the types of microgrid control system in worldwide sectors. Thank you.
All are completed?
Yeah, sir, all are completed, sir.
So Vasumati ask her to
We'll go for the vote of
thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. It's my pleasure and immense honor to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. Holding this international conference would not have been possible without the invaluable support and guidance of our principal, Dr. R.V. Krishnaya Garu. He has been the driving force behind this. We are indeed grateful to you, sir. We would like to express our utmost appreciation to the coordinator and the organizing committee members, Dr. K. Soundararajan Garu, Dr. B. Bhavani Garu, Dr. G.R.K. Murthy Garu, Dr. K. Kirtikumar Garu, for taking the responsibility to knit the threads together to make this event happen. Most importantly, we would like to acknowledge our profound gratitude to our esteemed chairperson, Dr. C.H. Satyanarayan Garu, for kindly accepting our invitation to chair this conference. Thank you once again, sir, for sparing your valuable time and effort in spite of your busy schedule with academic and administrative responsibilities. We will ever remain grateful to you for your gracious presence on this occasion and making it so memorable. We would equally like to express our heartfelt gratitude to the convener of this conference, Dr. G. Ramanamurthy Garu, for his precious time and effort. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing the occasion. We would like to place on record our sincere thanks to Mr. N. Paparao Garu for his invaluable support and assistance. We would also like to extend our thanks to our director, Professor N. Venkatrao Garu, for his encouragement and valuable suggestions. We extend our deep sense of appreciation to our Dean of Academics, Professor K. Venkatramaya Garu, for his guidance. Finally, on behalf of Chebrol Engineering College, we would like to acknowledge our gratitude to all the participants from different states across the country for their active participation. Thank you so much for your phenomenal support. This conference is the second one of a series of annual academic conferences. Before we drop the curtains, I am delighted to let you know that our institution will be organizing similar annual conferences to trigger your creativity. On this note, let us conclude the event. Stay safe, stay healthy. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.